All right, attempt number 4 to start this video. So in this video, I want to talk about how to talk about politics. And I understand that this is not the kind of thing that one might expect to see on a channel where we talk about IT careers, where we talk about DevOps, where we talk about open source technologies, things along those lines. But the idea is that all of these things exist in the real world. Our workplace exists within the real world. So we don't generally get to choose our colleagues. We have to work with a whole variety of people. And some of those people are going to have different opinions than us. Now, you can take the old New England style approach, which is what I grew up with, and you don't talk about politics or money or religion, and you just leave those things, out of the workplace, and you only talk about those things with close friends and family. And that's one approach. But I don't know if it's necessarily incredibly realistic. If you're spending a large amount of time at work, generally the people that you work with become your friends. At least that's the hope, right? Like it would suck to work with people that you dislike. So if these are people that you are friendly with, that you have a good relationship with, and there's a lot of things going on in the world that seem a little bit crazy, sometimes these are the people who you want to go to help process what's going on in the world. So I wanted to talk about the way that we can do that. And just to kind of be clear about it, there's not going to be any partisan stuff in this video. This video is not going to be from a left, right, or center perspective. This is going to be talking about how to engage with people in a way that preserves relationships, right? That allows you to talk about difficult subjects in a respectful way, that allows you to have meaningful conversations, that allows for you to potentially have your opinion changed and, maybe change other people's opinions. So that's the first thing. So when we talk about politics or any divisive subject, I think the first thing to just kind of have up front and think about as one of the main things is, if you have a disagreement with someone about an idea, about a political position, about some concept, right? You are against the idea, not the person. Right. So that's the first thing. Right. The second thing that you want to do is you want to establish some ground rules. So let's say you're having a conversation and then it steers into politics, right? It steers into a subject that's divisive, right? Let's say it is, whether people who haven't had an advanced degree are allowed to colonize a particular planet, right? Hopefully that's, I don't know, maybe people will watch this in the future and that'll be a contentious subject. But right now, I think that's hopefully a fairly safe example that's not going to get anybody up in arms over things. Whether people without advanced degrees are allowed to colonize particular planets in our solar system. So you realize that the conversation is going in this direction, right? And I think on the surface, this might strike people as kind of an awkward thing to do, but I don't think it really is that bad. You just want to set up some rules, right? So all right. So this could be something just as simple as like, hey, just as a heads up, I think we might be on the opposite side of this issue. So before we kind of start talking about this, I just want to make sure that, we don't let things get weird and, have that potentially damage our friendship. So if it seems like we're getting to a place where we have a complete schism and there's no way for us to resolve this, and maybe we get heated, let's just agree ahead of time to stop talking about it and move on. So it could be something as simple as that. If this is someone that you talk to regularly, maybe politics is a topic that comes up and you've had a couple kind of blowouts where, it's been uncomfortable. You guys have been annoyed with each other about politics. You feel like you're on the other side of things. Maybe it's more in depth. So you say, all right, well, it seems like there's some things that we talk about whenever we have these conversations where we run up against ideas where we'll have completely different ideas of what reality is, right? So, we'll say that, as an example, the Space Marines, previously inhabited Mars for 14 years before they opened it up to general. This is such a dumb analogy, but whatever it is, right? So I know that we've argued on things like this before. So before we come to a particular point where we don't agree on the facts, let's agree to how we can establish what truth is, right? Maybe that's as simple as going to Wikipedia, right? Maybe that's a friend that that is somewhere in the middle, who you both trust their opinion on. And beforehand you say like, all right, well, if we come to something that we disagree on fundamentally, whether there's truth here, let's turn to these websites, right? And you have a conversation about those kind of ground rules, whatever they are. And now you're not going to have a fight about that, right? Now you're not going to be fighting about what reality is. It just sort of eliminates that from the baseline kind of argument. The next thing that you want to go do, and this is, more for, maybe trying to change somebody's mind. Excuse me. Maybe try to change someone's mind. But it also kind of goes back to the first bullet point, the first idea, which is argue against the idea, not the person. And that's find an area of agreement. Better yet, maybe even find something to complement that person on. But I think that if you find something that you can agree on or reframe things, right? Probably the best way to say it. Reframe things. So you agree. All right. So, this may be, you're on the side of the argument that says, anybody should be able to colonize a planet, and the other person that you're arguing against says only people with advanced degrees should be able to colonize. You reframe this as obviously the process for recolonization needs reform. And I think let's try to figure out how we could reform this in order to make the process as efficient and seamless as possible. Like, how can we get the best results out of this? So now you have different approaches in terms of trying to achieve the goal, but you're both trying to achieve the goal. So this is no longer going to be an argument that you're trying to win. And that's really, really important because there's been numerous studies on this. And I wish I had the forethought to go look them up ahead of time, but it didn't occur to me. But there's been a number of different studies on this where basically as soon as you set up an antagonistic relationship, it becomes incredibly difficult for you to change someone's mind. That's basically not going to happen. right? So if you say, you're wrong, right? So basically, as soon as you say you are wrong, right, you're now on different sides. And that's really important, because what this means is if they change their mind, they lose. And who likes losing? Nobody, right? So we don't want to set up a dynamic that says, if you're going to change your mind, if you agree with me, right? If I convert you from your original position to the position that I hold, if I accomplish that, you lose. I don't want that dynamic. That's disincentivizing the person from changing their mind. It's going to make it incredibly difficult to go do it. So instead, I reframe it. Right? Now, I'm not going to get into my personal politics or anything like that, but I have been politically active basically my whole life. I come from a background in politics. Actually, I don't mind talking about it. My parents are pretty liberal. They were on the progressive civil rights issues, things like that. They were very active in that space. My mom was a founding member of the National Organization of Women. My father was a civil rights attorney, worked with Native American tribes. And my uncle was a Republican congressman from New Hampshire. And because of that, I've had politics from both sides, in my life, as far as I can remember. And I respect people on both sides of the aisle. And I've engaged with people on both sides of the aisle many times in order to try to go change their minds on different points. And I've gone so far as to lose an argument intentionally so that I can then reframe things, where I'll say, you know what, you're absolutely right. But instead of saying it that way, I think it actually probably, I think if we change the way that we said it to this, I think that would be something I could get more on board with. And then, what I rephrase it to be is a different meaning than the original statement. And what that allows them to do is not only save face, but now that they feel like they won, right? They feel like I'm somebody that is an open-minded person who is willing to talk to them and to listen to them and take their ideas into account. And that, I think, is the other really big point for this, is listen. And honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things you can do. Really listen to what the person is saying. Because, and this kind of goes, back to this point 3 over here, where we reframe things. This is not just like a dialectic tool that we're using. This is not just a trick that we're using to trick the other person into agreeing with us. There's no point in having a conversation about something like politics or difficult ideas if both parties aren't willing to change their opinion. So even if the other person isn't going to do that, you should do that. You should be the better person. You should go into this conversation with the idea that says, if this person has some points that I haven't thought of, and they find issues in the arguments that I've come up with, I should change my mind. And I'm going to look for opportunities to do that, right? So I think that's another really powerful thing you could do. So not only listen to them, but try to go restate what they say, right? So, if they say something along the lines of, listen, I know that it seems nice for anybody to be able to go to one of these planets. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't have an advanced engineering degree, you're not going to be somebody who can pull their weight and be able to go do things like, repair the oxygen generation machines, and help with the terraforming work. Right? There's just not enough supplies up there to be able to have people that can't contribute as much as the other people there. At that point, you say, okay, so let me make sure that I really get what you're saying. So basically what I'm understanding you to say is that there's a limited amount of resources there. And because there's a limited amount of resources there, that we need to make sure that the people that we send there are only the ones that can give us the highest return on investment for those supplies. So that means those need to be people like engineers, because right now the most important tasks that need to be accomplished is the continuation of the terraforming and the ability to go, do shifts on the oxygen generation machine and make, sure that that's well maintained and things like that. Is that correct? Like, am I getting that from you correctly? And then they'll be like, yeah, or they'll be like, no, actually what I meant was blah, blah, blah. And what you can do is you can refine your understanding of their argument, of their position. And again, argument's probably not the best word, but you can refine your understanding of their position. And whenever you do that, you're also reinforcing to that person that you are not just doing this by rote, right? You are not just arguing against a point because they're on a different team. You are really trying to understand where they're coming from. And it's going to get awkward and it's going to get weird if they don't do the same thing in return, right? If you keep doing this and you're saying, all right, does that line up with what you're saying? I want to make sure that you really, that we're on the same page. So, when we talk about this, odds are they will start doing the same thing for you. And what that allows you guys to do is to have this be an exchange of ideas. And that's what we want. We want this to be an exchange of ideas. We don't want this to be an argument. Arguments aren't productive, right? Dialogues are, right? Dialogues are. What we want to go do is we want to come up with a solution. And the solution in this case may just be a better understanding of the world and why people's positions are what they are. But one of the big things that this is going to do is it's going to allow us to have a conversation in a way that doesn't make either side angry, right? Because what's happening right now is we have all of these different, external forces, right? Be it news, right? Be it media bubbles, right? Be it, our social circle, right? Be it, information sources, right? There's a lot of different forces out there in the world that are really trying to demonize the other side, right? Whether it's political parties, right? We have all of these different forces that are trying to make people who don't agree with you into the enemy. And when people are the enemy, they're incredibly easy to dismiss. We're also sort of characterizing ourselves in very black and white views, where people are this or they're that. And if you look at the ideas, not the person, if you set up some ground rules to make sure that the conversation that you have is civil, so that before you get to something where you disagree on, you can figure out a way to find an authoritative source of truth. So we can make sure that the reality that we're understanding is the same, right? If we then go ahead and make sure that we actively listen to the other side that we're talking to, and that we restate their position in a way that gives the strongest version of their argument. We don't try to do straw men. We try to steel man their argument so that we give them all credit for the best possible meaning of their argument. And we try to go refine it so that we really do understand where the other side is coming from and what their rationale and thinking is for those ideas. Even if we end up disagreeing with them, what's going to end up happening is we're going to have a much more fleshed out view of the people that we're talking to. And if these are our coworkers, if these are our colleagues, if these are family, friends, whatever it is, right, what this is going to allow us to do is to have respectful disagreement where we don't agree, right? Because some of the times we may be able to go change each other's minds. Some of the times we won't be able to. And that's okay, as long as it's, coming from a decent place. There's nothing wrong with having different opinions. Having different opinions on things is good. If everybody in a society thought the same exact way about how the political environment should work, that would be a bad thing. Because if that system didn't work, well, you have no other options, right? You want to have different ideas. You want to have it be a battleground in one sense between ideas. But what you don't want to have is you don't want to have it be a battleground between people. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? We all get hungry. We all have to go to sleep. We all have to work. We all have different jobs. Every one of us has innate value from who we are as a person, and we have relationships that are meaningful with family and friends, and we're not evil cartoon cutouts. Most of us are good people. There's a really small number of people that are crappy, but most people are pretty good. Like if you were walking in your car and you saw an old lady fall down in the snow, you'd probably stop to help her. I would too. I think most of my neighbors would. I think most people that I vehemently disagree with on the political spectrum would help that old lady as well, because most people are decent, right? We're just in a weird environment right now where things are incredibly polarizing. So let's all try to do what we can to make sure that when we engage with people who have different political viewpoints than us, that we do so in a kind way, that we do so in a way that makes sure that the person that we're arguing with or we're talking to understands that we're not going after them. We disagree about particular ideas, right? We're going to set up ground rules in advance. So, if either one of us starts getting angry or emotions start getting involved or people get offended, we know how we're going to resolve that beforehand, right? You want to make sure that you try to reframe things as much as possible so that you can be in agreement about the fact that you are on the same team at the end of the day, right? You're on team humanity. You're on team Britain. You're on team France. You're on team whatever it is, right? Team United States, right? Whatever it is, right? That you acknowledge that the other person may have differences of opinion on how to best go about getting to the ultimate destination, or even what the ultimate destination might be exactly, but you generally agree on where we want to end up, and that we all have the best intentions. And then really listen, right? Listen to people that you think that you would hate. Right? A lot of those people don't get listened to. There's a huge amount of power in listening to people, because if you listen to somebody, you really listen to them and you restate what they say so that they know that you listened, that you have a strong understanding of where they're coming from, what their belief system is, how they got to that point. They can see you consider those things, and then you say, you know what? I know that you're trying to get to the right place with this, but I just feel like there's some problems with that. And I can't quite get on board. So what if we changed the way that we looked at it? And then you get into why you think that you should do something else, or you have a different political opinion on the topic. There's a good chance that you'll get listened to because you extended them the courtesy of listening to them. They'll feel validated. They'll feel like they're talking to a friend. And, hopefully they will be. And, maybe you can make some change with that. So anyway, that's my thought on the subject. Hope you guys have a great day. I hope this was not a weird video. Give me feedback in the in the comments if you hated this or if you thought this was useful. And I'll see you guys in the next one. So take care. Be good.